Hello and welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at this scenario, Seversky Donets River, 2017, Ukraine, Europe. It's a sparse map. I did it sort of at large scale because of the movement of the engineering units and to give them the sort of sway of which way they go and how that plays on strategy. Maybe I should have put the river a little further down. I sort of gauged it by this, putting this at the middle line, but I think a lot of the action is sort of up here. You don't really need this bottom bit, so I could have done it on a smaller scale map. I mean, I do that map as the next one down, and it would have all fitted on there, so all this is sort of pretty much lost. But the situation is, this is the Ukrainian forces, and they sort of got a line along here, and then it goes across the river, and it pretty much follows this river along. Now, and then these are the Luhansk People's Republic units, and this is Luhansk here. So Russia is just over here. In fact, Russia might actually be on the border. I'm not sure whether Russia should be there. But the whole point of this sort of map, based on the south front sites, is that the Ukrainians have been massing up with some engineering units, or at least some bridging units, so that they can cross the river. So if you actually look at this map, what we've actually got is the river, the Seversky Donets River, with three major bridges. There's another bridge. This road goes along here, and then it comes up here as another bridge. But I've assumed that they're fairly well defended, so there's forts on either side, and it's one of those things where clearly if it's a Second World War, you know, that they would commit a lot of units, like the Market Garden thing, Arnhem, all that sort of stuff, you know, to take the bridge. But I mean, this is sort of a war of attrition where they're not really going to commit that sort of assault, because lots of people would probably die. So they're really trying to take it easy on. I've got a bit of a case of death myself, so it's one of the reasons I haven't been doing as much on the site, and snivelling and coughing. I'm sort of okay, yes, but it's, yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's better. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so basically, the river is a significant geographic feature with these roads, and so I put sort of relatively small units everywhere, but I mean, obviously it doesn't need explaining, but to some extent I need to sort of point out that they've got south of the river here, so it's not so they can't get south of the river, but I think they're looking to sort of, and we're assuming that this sort of area is a sort of a bit of a stalemate. I haven't sort of put lots of units there to make it enforce that impression, but you can assume it's sort of a stalemate here. But you know, the Ukrainians, I think, are probably trying to get some sort of ground somewhere, and what they've basically done is put these pontoons together, and whether they're going to use them or not, I don't know. I mean, even if they even have them, we don't know. But it's a sort of interesting scenario from that point of view. From a gaming perspective, I think the thing is, how quickly can they decide where they're going to cross before the Luhansk side can respond to that? And they don't really have much to respond with. Maybe I should put a bit more on there, but I did give them this sort of bulk of units here. So they do have quite a lot that they can move with. But the thing is, how quickly can they get, say, there and then cross there before the Luhansk people can actually get to there and block it? And so it's just little things like that. That's what this game is about really. It's about sort of you know, the strategy of choosing a bridging hex and crossing the river. For example, I mean, obviously we're tied into the geography of the region, but if it was the other way around, they might have a lot more grace because they could get from there along the road to there quite quickly, and then come across here and go across there. But they don't really. So if it was a straight river going straight across, and the road followed it straight across, they could choose almost any point. But it's quite difficult here to choose a point. I mean, if you want to go here, you've got to go through all this agricultural land, which is going to be quite slow. They do have 5 movement. So to some extent, I've put them there. Now they're not really going to want to go too far over here because they've already crossed. But so, for example, but to get to there is quite difficult. To get to any of these hexes here is quite difficult. And they could come down here and then there. Maybe that'd be a bit easier. But even to get across to there, they've got to go through these hexes. It's going to be quite difficult to come through here and then up there. So, you know, to commit themselves this far east would be giving them enough warning to be able to sort of respond. So it's quite difficult terrain really, because they've got to go a lot further, you know, to sort of get to any of these positions, and these units can actually respond quite as easily to this direction as that. And so it's, you know, I like to play these games out in my mind sort of first, and you know, these are sort of quite compelling considerations, I think. So it's not easy for the Ukrainians to outwit the Luhansk People's Republic units. But the only thing to say is that whilst putting it all together, it came sort of clear to me to some extent is that they wouldn't know about it. The whole idea is it's secret. I mean, if these are sort of like 5 kilometres across, you know, you could move along here and no one would see you because there's no one near. Even if you're in the next hex, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see them. You know, you get God vision, God view when you're looking at it like this. You can see where all the units are. You know, I know a lot of war games they have hidden movement, and a lot of computer games when you don't get line of sight, you can't see the units. But you know, those things are fine, but it takes away the gameplay. You know, I don't like games where sort of you move your unit up and you get to there and all of a sudden 3 units appear there that you didn't see. I mean, it might be realistic, but it doesn't make for a fun game because the second time you play it, you know they're going to be there, and it's just frustrating because it's almost as though, I don't know, it makes it a very different game. Anyway, so that's just the one point. Now there is another little thing here. We've got some rockets, and I haven't actually given them their proper name. That's one thing I should maybe do. But basically, there are some reports that the Ukrainians have been using ballistic missiles. They say on civilians. I'm sure they weren't targeting civilians. So, I mean, basically, I think the Russians are saying they've got proof that the Ukrainians have been using ballistic missiles, and so there's nothing to do immediately with this scenario, but I put them in because I read it through at the same time. And basically, it's an interesting dimension to it. So you've not only got the bridging consideration, you've got sort of what you do with your ballistic missiles. Now, I'm not sure how effective they're going to be, but they've got an offensive of 11, and so they should, to some extent, give you the sort of edge. They're not the sort of things that completely wipe out a hex. Now, the other angle on here that sort of could be played is to actually storm a bridge hex. So that could actually be done as well. Anyway, And the other thing that it's not so much bugging me, but they've got some artillery. I've been a bit. I don't want to give them too much artillery. They've got some artillery there, which is counterbalanced with that artillery. Their reinforcements are much stronger, but we've got these sort of reinforcement units down here. I think we'll add a few more because the whole idea is Luhansk is defended. It's all about getting across the river and getting a bridgehead across the river, or getting across the river and taking one of these units out and securing that hex, as opposed to taking Luhansk. Not really. The key objective is not to take Luhansk. That's why there's not an objective marker on it. It's all about just sort of getting across the river and the options that unit gives, and just trying to sort of think about that. Really, that's all this is about. But so we've got the options of full frontal across the river, obviously, but I don't think that's really in the spirit of what's happening, because I think that it's all about sort of minimal effort, maximum gains, or minimum cost, maximum gains in a war, sort of mainly attrition. But obviously a lot of artillery fire. That's what I was talking about with the artillery. And the thing is that's what bugs me, but you could just sit there firing your artillery turn after turn, and then they'll do the same thing, and sooner or later something will give. And I'm not sure why they don't do that. I think there's a lot of international sort of observation, and it would, if they did just sort of bombard cities, then it wouldn't look good for them. I mean, they are doing it anyway, but they are doing it anyway. But in a gameplay, you could almost just do that. So to some extent, there would be not so much a requirement, but you would have then counter artillery. So I mean, you could start firing at that unit, and this unit could fire at this unit. But you'd really want to get rid of the other person's artillery first, so each person would be firing their artillery at each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so they're not in range. So, obviously there's a lot of angles on what you do with the artillery. And, once one side loses the artillery and the other side has artillery domination, it would become a very different game, because then you could just sit there, just firing on artillery on these units. And the game sort of falls to bits at that level, I think, because once you can do something like that, you can pretty much gain the upper hand and win, because you don't even have to confront the units. But I think in reality, if by the amount of time it will take you to sort of achieve that sort of artillery superiority, there would be a change in the field, in the sense that there would either be reinforcements or withdrawal, or the other unit would bring replacement artillery to replace the lost artillery. And we don't sort of have that, So, but even so, artillery duels are significant consideration, and so that's pretty much it. I don't really want to play. I was going to play it. I just wanted to sort of make another video because it's been a while. The thing about this scenario, there's not a lot of units. Again, just coming back to what I sort of said early on, this river is uncrossable, and let me see what I can do with. See, what I'd like to do is to be able to sort of somehow left 3.5, 7.5. See, that's it. That's as far as I can get. Now, there's no surprises now. It's going to be somewhere in there. And the infantry can't move much further. Okay, so I've got all that way. It's I've only got a few seconds left now, so really it's just sort of like, I suppose it could sort of just jump in there next turn. I don't know. But that's what the game's about. So if you want to get your brain around that, sign up and have a blast. I'll speak to you later. Cheers. Bye.